We're going to go live streaming now. There we go, back on. I can't even see the time from here. Good afternoon, everyone. Afternoon, Paul, Roger, and our two representatives from the Camera Safety Partnership. You've been with us all morning. Do you want to take us through some of the aspects of the report and the policy, Paul, please? As you know, we've had many here today. Concern is massive within this authority on speeding and road safety, and I'm sure officers and everybody else, it's within their remit to make sure we do have a safer Monmouthshire the best we can within the resources we have. We've actually here today to go through our policies and speed enforcement. As we know, we've got many schemes out there and many communities contacting you probably on a daily basis, seeing whether we can make their areas safer.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Well, the report sets out, really it confirms as the discussion during the open forum there are considerable concerns from residents throughout Monmouthshire about speeding and a desire to see lower speed limits within their communities. Monmouthshire County Council follows the national guidance, Welsh national guidance, called Setting Local Speed Limits, and this sets out a number of criteria which officers use to assess sites to see whether they are appropriate speed limits. It takes into criteria such things as existing speeds and accident records, etc. It does allow flexibility in terms of community concerns, but that needs to be consistent, and that's really what I'm going to come on to after in terms of how we move forward in terms of trying to prepare policy for Monmouthshire to ensure that consistency. And there are often other measures that are required other than just introducing the speed limit, such as engineering measures, which can be costly and need to be factored into any proposals for sort of widening our speed limit approach. And there are also within road safety generally other things that should be considered other than reducing speed limits, and that's encouraging motorists to drive slower or more appropriately through speed limit, through education. We also have enforcement, and we have the Safety Camera Partnership here who can help to answer some questions. I don't believe they have a presentation as such because Sergeant Lee Ford was unable to make it, but I know they've been asked questions earlier on, but you may wish to ask them questions, Chairman, as part of this item of the agenda. And then obviously, last of all, there's the engineering measures as well. So the recommendations are about reconvening the task and finish group. I think we did have one initial meeting of that following an earlier select going back a couple of years now, and that did involve a site visit to Pontypridd to have a look at the cameras or the Go Safe headquarters there in terms of looking at the back office and the equipment that they use out on the highways to catch motorists who are speeding, etc. In developing a speed management policy, members will need to, I feel, consider the national policy that we have in terms of the road safety, Welsh Government's Road Safety's delivery programme, which is basically the strategic Welsh Government road safety strategy. Monmouthshire's own road safety strategy, which is probably getting out of date a bit now and needs to be reviewed and perhaps could fit in as part of this process. Setting local speed limits, which I referred to earlier, which are the basis of any speed limit review at any location, and also the new design principles in terms we have new manual for streets which we use, they're purely used for the design of new developments to make sure that they fit in with the national framework, but also we often try to retrofit that within existing environments as well. So that would be something of interest to members, as well as obviously 20-mile-hour zones and how they've been introduced within Monmouthshire, and probably you'll often hear members will say they've seen other locations where they introduce certain schemes which they would like to see in Monmouthshire. So those are some of the issues that they might wish to consider. and hopefully that can all help to form a strategy for Monmouthshire, and we could look at an MCC speed management policy. So I have already, well, one of my colleagues has actually helped to look through a number of other policies or speed management policies that other authorities have put together, and I feel that we could use that as a basis then as well for that group, if it was to be agreed to proceed on that basis, to use as a basis for developing a policy for Monmouthshire. So that's really all I have to say on that, Chairman, and obviously it's for you to discuss and see if that's an appropriate action, but also it might be an opportunity for to introduce my colleagues from the or our partners, as it is, from Go Safe, who spoke to you earlier on about some specific issues, but perhaps they might like to just introduce themselves and say what they're doing in Monmouthshire and how they see things going forwards in the future.
Thanks, Paul. Can you just give us a quick brief outline, please?
Yes, my name is Glenn Walker. I'm from Go Safe. I'm the speed complaints administrator with Go Safe. With regards to the speeding issues in Monmouthshire, I think Monmouthshire, out of all the local authorities in Gwent, is the main area where we get speed complaints. We've worked with the public in Monmouthshire at the moment with regards to Community Speed Watch to try to address the speed issues. If you want me to talk about this at this time, no? Just what we're doing with regards to speed. In relation to speed, we are dealing with a number of complaints in relation to Monmouthshire, and we're trying to address them. At the moment, there are 10 sites. Is the camera on?
No, I think we've got more on that now. Possibly about 15 sites.
With regards to the sites, my colleague Nicola Rossi here, she's a speed camera enforcement officer, and she can advise the sites that we are actually actively working on.
I would say, without having actually my Monmouthshire sheet with me, we've got about 15 to 20 sites in Monmouthshire at the moment, which we enforce, as previously explained, on a red, amber, green strategy, where if it's a site that we feel needs more enforcement because they need more education, then it will have a minimum of 5 sites a month. Whereas if it drops down to an amber, it's 3 visits a month, then green, 2 visits a month. We have one officer covering Monmouthshire on a monthly basis. We all swap around, as obviously you are aware that we cover all of Gwent, but Monmouthshire with the travelling distances as well. We cover as much as we can, and quite often we end up doing what we call route enforcement, such as down the Tintern Road, the A466. We've got Landogo, Tintern, St Albans, and then St Lawrence Road, A466, that we enforce. But as previously suggested, with regards to the complaints from the public, I will actually go up the B4598 and obviously look through it for possible parking, risk assessment work. But no promises being made. We'll obviously put it forward to the partnership manager if we can bring it on as what we call a grey site, and then obviously we'll do route enforcement down that road as well, if we, authorised. But as far as Monmouthshire is concerned, yes, we've got a high volume of sites that we need to cover, but we do cover them on a site visit strategy that's been monitored with time on site and site visits through not just on, with our local Gwent team, but also with the partnership as a whole, the All Wales Partnership.
May I ask then, you're saying that out of the 5, we're actually more active than the others, or we seem to be one of the biggest complainants with speed. Is there a reason for that, or is it because we're just rural? Would you say that actually the Welsh Government should possibly do a little bit more for Monmouthshire because we are more complainant than probably the other 4? Or is it because they're bigger areas in towns, let's say the town size of it, the road structure? Just in my head, I'm just trying to work out in a way of having more support from you than what the other 4 do, because we are actually bringing this to your attention even more. I'm just trying to put something forward where we want you more than what we're having at the moment. How do we get that?
I think the majority of the complaints are to do with the road was mentioned earlier, and also the B4235. But obviously the speed limit on that has been changed, and there's double white lines on that road. They were the main roads that we were receiving complaints on, and we've tried to address that. But what I'm saying is the complaints that come in. We've set up. There's a number of community speed watches. I've gone back to that. Monmouth, I think in total in Gwent, there's I think about 16 or 17 community speed watches at this time, and 12 of them are in Monmouthshire.
Sarah?
Monmouthshire, and that's why I say with regards to, and that's covering the whole of Monmouthshire from, well, Monmouth itself right down to, I've actually got a list here of, I requested that this morning of the locations, and
Yeah. Just to move, any chance of making that list available?
I don't see any issue with that. I'll obviously have to check to make sure that I can
Okay.
disclose it. But there's Tynton, Llangibby, Usk, Llanfair,
Can
Kilgedin.
you forward that to the clerk here, and then she distributes it to members? And if you want it confidential, just put on top that we all know what our rights are and what we can do and what we can't do. If
Yeah.
you feel it's got to be confidential, send it off, and we can
If I could perhaps if I check when I go back.
email to the clerk.
Yes,
here, and then
I'll
she'll
do that.
distribute it. Sarah, you just wanted to... Yeah.
Sorry, there's 11 up and running, and there's one in Caldicott, which is in development apparently, and there's one that has apparently been mentioned to me this morning, looking to propose one at Llanelli Hill, or Llanelli Hill.
Llanelli Hill.
Llanelli
Llanelli Hill.
Hill, Llanelli Hill.
Right. Yeah. Could I just say, Sarah, I'm just going to take... I think you'll find you're on the tip of the iceberg in Monmouthshire here, because every meeting I go to, whether it's public, area committee or whatever, and the gentleman there will tell you, and this gentleman will tell you, it's the main thing that we have is speeding, traffic and the dangers on the road, right? And we're on the tip of the iceberg on your sites. I could give you 4 in my area, but we have a different probably avenue we take them probably. And I think every area within Monmouthshire has issues on speeding and serious issues. We have lots of deaths as well on the road, as you know, motorcyclists, whatever, especially in the area we've been talking about here. So I think we're on the tip of the iceberg, and I'm going to put a recommendation to the committee today now on perhaps a different way where they may be thinking, where I think probably we just need to have a better review on this as a council and members, not just us. Sarah?
Yeah, just first, it was just to pick up on just a couple of one thing you said there. And you said Monmouthshire receives the most complaints, or you receive most complaints from Monmouthshire out of the other local authorities. And
Sorry, when I say complaints, members of the public could complain, not from the council itself.
yeah, okay, so members of the public complaining, there's a higher propensity from Monmouthshire residents to do that than anywhere else. And you mentioned the majority of those complaints are on 2 specific roads. So that to me suggests, and it is great because you're saying you're going to take this forward and hopefully we'll see Llanfair again, or the B4598 as a grey area. But all the weight of evidence is there in terms of public opinion, and surely that's got to go some way now to us seeing some positive action. So that was just on that specific one. I've got a number of things that I think should be recommendations or actions, and I think I mentioned them before. I do think, you know, and other members will have opinions on this. I think we need to take forward the task and finish group and re-establish that. But I think underpinning that group needs to be a memorandum of understanding with various stakeholders, not just councillors. It needs to include Gwent Police, Go Safe, VOSA, I think you mentioned might be another partner. And we need to agree that that's going to come together every 6 weeks or so, and it's an opportunity for us to have a formalised meeting with those groups, with the councillors. I mentioned before about maybe getting the Police and Crime Commissioner along to a further meeting, as we've asked him to do to our next Bryn Cwm meeting. I think an action that came out of earlier was finding a space for Go Safe Van, and Nicola mentioned that earlier, so that's great if that can come forward from today. And then coming back and looking at these other local authorities, that might be an action to come forward to the first working group meeting or the first task and finish group meeting. So I just wanted to run through that my hopeful actions that might come from this, because I think that might be a positive way forward, but I know other members will have suggestions as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can mention, with regards to the 2 roads that I've been mentioned now that we're talking about, what we have found is that it's not a speed issue on those roads, it's a noise matter, and from the evidence that we have had with regards to the deployment of these COVID analyzers, it suggests that it's not speed, it's the noise. One of the complainers who lives near Shire Newton, he was one of the main complaints. He was offered, and he came out on an operation over an from what I'm aware of, over an Easter period, and he was in the van for an hour with one of the operatives, like Nicola, and he was there for an hour apparently, and there was no offences.
Back on that. I don't want to go back over everything we've just discussed, because I mean it goes back to the point about the average speed and that sort of thing. But you know, it's that minority that's speeding at just excessive speeds beyond what you'd expect on a rural road, and we have already seen, very sadly, 1 fatality this summer, and I believe on my roads there, and I believe that was down to speeding again at a very high speed. So I'll take your point, but I'm going to have to differ, and it's going to go back to everything everyone said earlier. We're all going to have concerns over this. So
Yeah, I think I mentioned probably 5-6 years ago, we all come from different areas and we all have different issues with speed or noise or whatever. But the common denominator in all this is we'd all like something to be tried to done with it, whether it's you or us or other bodies. And I remember Brinacombe last time I was a councillor, I think we used to have graphs, didn't we, Paul, of areas of complaint and speed and all that, and it was non-stop, wasn't it? And we as authority could just not handle it. It used to be every 6 weeks there, we'd have a massive list of people's complaints and councillors' complaints. It hasn't gone away, it's probably even worse. And it's something we as a council are going to have to sit down and have some direction on, with partners, of course. It ain't going to get any easier, that's for sure. You're going to be in a job for a long, long time. Right, Val.
Perhaps other authorities have different arrangements on their roads, and that's why they don't have to come to you so frequently. I would support everything that Sarah said. The concern, I'm not quite sure, I'm never good with numbers on roads. I know distinctly this is the A472. The issue here with residents is speed. Rush time is quite interesting. And interestingly, and thank you very much for your time the other week, I do appreciate, and you would have got the email, but my system's being funny. I found interesting from that meeting with GoSafe and your other colleagues in the police, the fact that on this road here, this stretch of road, yours truly as local members amazed to find there have been 6 personal injury incidents in the last, was it 2 or 3 years? Now that amazed me. Fortunately, we haven't had a fatality, but magnify that by the number of incidents that occur that aren't reported by the police. It's phenomenal. So speed is the issue on this road. Yeah, we get the rip-roaring biker every now and then, but not as frequently as Sarah has those in her patch. I would go along with, yes, the reformation of this working group and actually doing something and bringing something forward, and seriously considering that the remarkable offer that came from the back of sponsoring a couple of miles of average camera. I mean, that is a remarkable offer from a member of the public, which I was totally unaware of. And so would move that we
put the same offer up there?
Jeffrey might be a bit unhappy. I'd love to if I could. I'll do it.
Okay, thanks, Val. Any more questions on this? We need to get some recommendations now on moving this forward, and we can let these... Kushkan.
With regards to the accidents you mentioned, I haven't got the information in front of me, but I think from what I can recall at the meeting, we GoSafe look at the number of accidents for the past 3 years that has taken place, any the casualties, etc. We also look at the causation factors, and I might be wrong, but I think at the meeting, I don't think any of them were down to speed; they were down to driver error.
thanks for that. Yeah.
It's really just a follow on from Councillor Jones, really, because she was starting to give a list of actions, and I think that again is what we're wanting from here. So I'm a bit nervous about talking about policy all the time. I think, as I say, in terms of policy, there's tend to be one then. It probably needs tweaking, but as I say, policy about how something's going to be done. But we absolutely need a strategy, so we've got an action plan. And a little bit like, I suppose, when we resurfacing the roads, we have a resurfacing schedule, so at least we know we are on that schedule and it is getting looked at. I kind of would like something like this in terms of speed management, because obviously we're here as part of this committee, sort of raising the issues in our area, but we do know that it affects every single county councillor, and it should not be a system of whoever is up there shouting the loudest, making those connections, but there should be some sort of structure around how we're working through the authority, which then leads me on to the question, really, what are the capacity issues within Monmouthshire County Council to implement a strategy like this?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to respond to that, because Councillor Jones mentioned various actions in there, all of which I understand. I think the one issue and talked about meeting on a 6-week period. I would suggest that at the first meeting we start to look at that, because I am conscious we've got to be able to service that group and the amount of resource which we have available to it in terms of servicing the group, and that we may, and perhaps that's something which we tease out when that first group comes together. I'm not trying to put it off or demean its importance. What I don't want to do is give a commitment and then not be able to fulfill it. So I'd rather do it that way, if that's okay with members. The issue about then more widely about resource is perhaps an issue which we can actually raise at that time. This group is going to be to talk about speeding. With members' agreement, I'd like to touch on a couple of other things as well, because you are hitting an issue, quite frankly, around resources, capital and revenue, to be able to undertake these things. Like at the moment, we tend to say yes and then try to find the money. But in terms of capital, we've taken a massive reduction in capital available, not necessarily because of Monmouthshire, but the Welsh Government, Local Government Borrowing Initiative, that money's moved elsewhere. So we've now got a lesser capital available. If we choose to prioritise this direction, then we don't do the resurfacing or the bridge repairs or whatever it is to the same extent. And I think we need to have that conversation as well. So as you can help us to understand how best to prioritise what we have got available. Because you say quite rightly, Mr. Chair, you go to a lot of meetings, a lot of the demands are highway related and frontline services, aren't they? That's what people are particularly interested in. We have to work with that and the resources we have available to make it best effective. So if the group would take a little bit of time to consider that aspect as well, I think that would be very helpful. That isn't to demean this, is to add on, quite frankly, to the work of the group.
That
Val?
relates back to the previous working group that we had with highways, that treated was looking at the whole broad spectrum. And I do regret the fact that it's now, 2 years since anything was done about that. I don't really know why it failed, because I felt we were really getting somewhere. But it was looking at the wider issues as to how long can we afford to do this, how can we do that, how do we prioritise, and it was all just swept away.
I have prepared a draft agenda, so at the first meeting of the group we can concentrate upon the speeding issue. But at the same time, perhaps we could look at what other issues which that group may need to look at.
Could I just say, I think we've all got different directions we would like to take, but at the end of the day, we're all going to end up in the same place. Would it be, and tell me whether I'm wrong here, and I'll go on your direction as well. Would it not be best, because I think Go Safe, we haven't had what we were promised today. Great for coming along, but we were going to have the man there and we were going to ask whatever. Not to say you haven't helped us today. I would like to have a members' seminar here and let members have their input. We sit here all day, I couldn't care less, right? Let members have their input, have you there, ask Vosa to come, because at the end of the day, you're quite right, Roger, we can have what we want and aspirations what we want, but we're not going to deliver it. Waste of time. But there is a direction we have here, is trying to move something forward. And I would say every member should come to a seminar here, listen to yourselves, go safe, get the top dog here with his screen or whatever. Ask Vosa to come, environment, about the noise levels, everything. Let's have them here and let's do it quickly. And let's see how quickly we can then, from that meeting, see what direction as a council. Because we can do what we want, Val. We can say, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. But he's quite right. We may not have the resources. But if everybody says, yes, we need to have some strategy and some funding to move this forward, at least everybody knows. Because I know what will happen is we will go away and do this and do that, and all of a sudden that spanner, as I'll call it, gets thrown in there, and all of a sudden then we stall out again because, oh, well, why are they having that there and they having this? And that's generally what happens. Let's be democratic and do it properly. Val, you've got great concerns. Sue, Sarah, I have, you have, Debs has, Tony has, right? We've all got them. And don't forget, there's another probably 36 members out there who will have exactly the same. And I think it's very unfair that we go off on our little adventures and build policy around our aspirations. And I think I'd like to include the others. Rightly or wrongly, what do you think? Yeah. Sarah?
Whoever comes into that member STEM, I think it's an excellent idea. I think everyone needs to be involved or have the opportunity to be involved. But we need to be made aware of what the funding constraints are for Go Safe for others, where the proportion of funds go within the different local authorities. All that needs to be laid out to us, because until we really understand that, we don't know what we're up against and we don't know where we should be fighting or pushing our resources in terms of lobbying for extra support. So if all that can be made clear to whoever's given the presentation, we want a very clear outline of funding, level of capacity, where current efforts are directed, that sort of thing, where how many vans we've got, how many officers, all that kind of information would be really helpful.
Yeah.
That we have a seminar where everyone can have their say, and then we channel that down to a group that goes off and
I think that's really fair on everyone as well, because
yes.
we
gets a say.
Everybody has a say. We'll spend all day. I don't really care.
Then there's a smaller group who'll
From
take
that,
it,
we'll establish, I believe, what our aims
what we
here
need
are.
to do. Lovely.
And I think all these bodies should come. They are having funding to help us. Let's see what. And it may be the outcome of this is we have to find £100,000 from wherever to put into something to deliver something, right? And we as a council then can make that decision on when we come to budgets, whether we're prepared to fund that in a different way. I know my office sitting there is pulled from pillar to post, right? Because he's been pulled this week or last week from my community over something which was not this authority's bringing. And we only have one pot of money, and I know we ain't going to keep everybody happy. I will speak with the clerk now, and I'll send every member who's here within our committee an email. If we're in agreement with that, we'll try and push that now and hopefully get something in the next probably 4 weeks. I'll speak to the leader as well and the cabinet member and see where we can bring the bodies here. I think they have an obligation to come to us and sit here, tell us what they have and tell us what they can do for us. Yeah, well, we ain't going to please everybody here, but I hopefully will please most.
We do have already diarised seminar dates which are free.
Okay.
Just lock them in, so
Okay.
we'll have a look at the dates for you.
All right, we're all happy with that? Are you happy with that? Everybody happy with that? Anything else on this matter? Right, thank you very much. And hopefully Mr. Ford will come next time. Okay, and don't forget Linnell Eel in your correspondence there. Good afternoon, Roger. Sorry. Gareth. and Roger Gareth. Roger Gareth and Roger. Roger Gareth, Roger. Could you just run through this report with us, please? And then members will want to ask questions.
So we also manage those signs as well. I'd have to say that is now starting to cause us some concern as some of them start to fail. They're not working properly, and recently we've been discussing how we manage that. We are going to be replacing a few now shortly, but it's an added, it's a burden which is placing more pressure upon that budget. Perhaps as an introduction that may be enough, and perhaps we'll pick up on the issues which members wish to raise. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Roger, thanks for that. Members, questions on the I won't call it the renewal of our old lighting system and hopefully the renewal of our new lighting system. Looks like we're going to do the whole lot in the next couple of years, is it? Reading the report. We've got 10,000. Well, it's saying we're after another loan, are we? Or is that the other loan we just had?
We've installed, Mr. Chairman, We have been upgrading the system anyway. We put in Philips, what we call, we put in some lighting over the recent years, which wasn't LED. We've now moved to LED as it's become more affordable, because ultimately it's the best system. But we started replacing lights some years ago, so we have been going through a program of that. And obviously we've been taking out the oldest lights as we've been going along, and the least efficient lights as we've been going along. So there's always something on the market. It would be nice to have all LEDs, wouldn't it? But that isn't going to be the case. We have brought in new, better lights when we brought in the dimming, but ultimately the ones we're going to replace now are the oldest. So they're not all going to be LEDs and for some time into the future.
But it's all about the switching, isn't it? The control of them more than anything, making sure that we can save energy during hours, which actually they play no part. So we've got nearly 10,500 lights, and we've done the remote controlling on 7,000, it says here. So that means we're 2/3 there, so we've got another third left to do, more or less, give or take. So are we going to do the other third then in the near future, or are we going to leave the other third for the next couple of years? Straightforward science, isn't it?
What it is, Chairman, at the moment in time, the last LED lanterns that we've changed, we've done away with all our SOX lanterns, which was the high energy users altogether on residential estates. We've still got a lot of what we call sun lighting, which isn't that old, but is not on the monitoring system at the moment, and some are on the monitoring system. We're looking to start to change some of those on the residential estates, so they're on the monitoring system, and then we're starting to control them through there. Then we can dim them and turn them on and off as and when required.
Yeah, thank you, Roger and yourself for the response to my questions. They're quite comprehensive. The SOX lanterns are the very expensive ones to run, and you're getting rid of those. The sun lanterns are less expensive, and now we're looking at putting in LEDs. Was it short-term? Surely it was a short-term view that we should have gone to LEDs in the beginning, because I did raise this when we were talking about it a while ago, that LEDs would have been a far better route to take at the time. We're now getting grants or loans to do this. Are we losing money? Are we losing money in terms of the fact that we're taking lamps out? What are the value of them when they're taken out? They can't be resold. And what will it cost to convert the rest of this lot now to LED lighting? And as I say, they're about 3.5 or 4 to 1 ratio of what they use. Will our energy bill reduce by 3.5 or 4 to 1 when we've done this? And how long do you believe it will take to get to this point? In my mind, we could get to a point where we're putting lights off in residential areas at the moment for 6-7 hours a night. Wouldn't it be better to change them to LED lights and not put those lights off in those residential areas where people are making the most complaints? Is that a complicated question or what?
Thank you, Rog. When we say we're changing the sun lanterns, which is the new type of lanterns, to LEDs, I say new lanterns, but most of them, I suppose, have been up 10, 15 years.
Right. They've lost their value then, in other words.
Yeah, so the value as such is now limited. They reckon most lanterns will last 20 years, so it's only a 5-year lifespan that you're sort of losing on them. Now we're going to LED, as Roger said earlier, purely because of the cost of them. I mean, when they first came out, LED lanterns, yeah, they was, a normal roadside lantern was around about the £500-600 each. Yeah. Also, when they first came out, you wouldn't get a spread of light off them that you would now. The optics within the lanterns have all changed.
So you are changing different lights and to get the best effect.
This is it, yeah, we are now changing them. We're changing them on residential estates where they can now meet the standards that's still there. Yeah. Whereas before you would have had what we'd call pools of lights. You'd have had a light, a black swatch, then another light. Whereas now the LED lanterns will give you the spread light that the existing lighting gives you. As and when it would, we would complete the authority, I would say that by that time I'll have retired. But that's another story. Because changing to 2,500, if we go ahead now with those, there's still going to be, I would imagine, on residential estates somewhere in the region of another 3,000 to 4,000 lanterns still out there that need to be changed before you move on to the main road lighting. I don't know whether that answers the question, Shia.
Well, just
Just that, through chairs, to say about the costings with it as well. I mean, Western Power is now reading our monitoring system. Once we get onto the full board, which is hopefully, I believe, they're going to start testing it with SEC at this moment in time within the next month, with the reports of lights out will now automatically go to SEC. So the job tickets will be raised through the monitoring system and not through, so where they are on the monitoring system, it'll go straight there. But Western Power will also then, within the same period of time, start to pick up what our lights are actually energy using. And they are reporting back that we'll then pay the energy we use and not the anticipated energy. So that hopefully will be a little bit of a reduction as well.
Okay, Val?
Yeah, you just answered the question I was going to ask about the costing. Where are they actually controlled from? Where's the central control?
My laptop.
Oh, right. That's fine. And the control that you have over the lighting fittings, is it similar to the antennae that the gas people have now established at my house, so that they can take the readings from the bulk tank?
It would be, yeah, it's antennas on top of each of the lights, and we've got what we call a master node,
Right.
which controls 256
perhaps
lanterns.
your problem is the same the gas company have, that it doesn't register because, well, intermittently it registers on our reader because of the black spot.
And Roger, correct me if I got this wrong, but I believe it works on mobile phone technology.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is
so
as they were working, yeah.
you get the black spots in that, and therefore it's transferring to the branch node.
That's right.
There's like a main controller which will control
Yes.
247 lights.
256.
256 is inflation. So it'll control that many lights from this branch node. That's receiving a message, that's sending a message out to
Yes.
256. If it fails to get to one, it's not knowing what to do. And so where that, not only is it the signal to the branch node, it's where the branch node is situated as well. So as we can control those 256. And I suspect when they come on site, that'll be one of the issues they're looking at, as to where that's the optimum place for that. The other thing that I should mention is whenever there's a new development now, then one of the requirements is that they install LED lights with a branch node on it. Yes. And we then use that to control whatever's on that estate. But hopefully we can latch onto others which are already developed around it, because you can take 256 off that branch node. So we're gaining some benefit off that through the development as it's going ahead.
Can I just throw in another point? Because this episode yesterday at my own home, one telephone system, one phone system would work, the other wouldn't. It's the black spot thing, which leads you to think, well, why on earth can we not require these companies to share poles? And let's get common sense. I mean, a little bit of sharing, and it would certainly help your problems then as well as mine.
Okay, Deb?
It's really just going back to probably the original reason why we're, apart from obviously saving energy and good for the environment and everything, but it's about efficiency and saving costs for the council. So I would have liked to seen some figures in terms of this is how much we've invested, and these are our annual savings as a result. One of the concerns in my area, and I think you've been contacted by community councillors in my area, we have LED lights, but they are on 24/7 in a rural area. So it's kind of, they're there, but obviously we're not saving money because they're on too long, because of a fault or what have you. So at some point, I would like to see the bottom line. This is how much we're investing, and this is how much we're actually saving per year. And then my second question is, if we do have an issue, are you the man that I should just continue asking community councillors to contact for you to remotely control and turn off our lights in the rural villages?
The answer, yeah, at the moment I am the one that's got control of the lights in the, well, throughout the authority on the monitoring system.
So they contact you directly, or do we need to...
No, it goes through the highways complaints section and then it comes down to me. As far as the costing is...
Hang on. If I may, members would be best advised to, unless they see officers and they say, can you pick this up, fine. Outside of that, I would push it through the contact centre, because they will then put it into Mayrise, and then you've got a record of it, and Roger will inevitably get it anyway. But if he's away, he comes back a fortnight later, your email's buried down the bottom of 168 others, and you run that, you run that risk. So I would suggest you go through that way we got some trail on it.
And then you said a contact number then, Roger. Is that the same number that the Chief Executive has been promoting for community councils to work through?
In normal circumstances, somebody phones the authority, 644, they go to the contact centre and they would pick that up. So I'm not thinking of those. I know the numbers which you refer to, but that's in instances where community councillors are frustrated that they're not getting a response to something, so they're advising them to go to those particular numbers rather than the day-to-day stuff, I would suggest.
Excuse me, Chair, can I just come back to the first question a minute? Regarding the day burners, the cost of it at this moment in time, because we're still doing it as we have done up to now with the normal, through the UMSUG group, which is we don't pay for day burners at the moment. We've got a group, all street lighting throughout the authority is exactly the same. We submit the times that it's supposed to be burning and what the wattage of the light is, and you only pay for the hours through the evening. So at this moment in time, while they're not picking it up on the monitoring system, we're still not paying for them day burning. So that at the moment there is no extra cost to the authority. But it is the environment, yeah.
May I say, sorry Val, may I say though, I've spent probably, I only have 24 hours in a day, but in the last probably 2.5 months, I must answer at least probably 2 or 3 calls a week about lights. Could I just recommend from my fellow councillors here, we actually just put a press release out to the members of public of Monmouthshire just to say, look, we know there's an issue with these lights and we know they're on, but we are working on it because, by God, it's doing my head in. Can we do that, please? That's so simple, isn't it? For everyone sitting here, or for 88,000 constituents, or whoever we have in Monmouthshire, I would actually just welcome a quick press release saying we're working on it, bear with us, your lights are on, they don't cost us anything, whatever, because, God, I'm getting really tired.
Can I
Val.
also, yeah, please, it's, Roger, we don't have many lights in my district, so that's all right. But please, could we dig them out of the trees? There's a particular one here outside headquarters, opposite, that the light from is nil because it's completely immersed in the tree. Must be just outside planning almost. Left-hand side going out of us on the bend. It actually would be good to see that because it's not a very good bend. Okay, that one there, and also you and I have walked the route in Woodside where there's not a lot of benefit from the lights there, but particularly this one outside our headquarters is invisible. So if we could look at that one particularly. Thank you.
Val, you made a very valid point there. Sue? No, I think she knows.
I found it very interesting that you work from your laptop. It explains all my queries and all the reasons why they haven't been answered. The light I've complained about on the link road is surrounded by trees, and you can't spot it on your laptop, and you probably think Sue White's making it all up. So I can now go back and tell the constituents it's all down to IT. But someone is going to be coming around physically looking at them, and they won't miss it, I can promise you. But that is another question. Who is responsible for uncovering the lamps from the trees so that you can see the road.
I think that comes back to another point mentioned today about road signage, overgrowth, cleanliness. We do have a lot of lanterns which actually are overgrown with branches, trees, especially this time of year as well. Serve no purpose. Do we have an inspector at the moment going around just doing things? How do we actually remedy that? Because if we can't cut grass verges, the cost of going around some of these trees is going to be colossal to trim these branches back. How are we actually going to get around that one? Because the expense of trimming trees is going to be very expensive. What are we going to do with that one, Roger?
Quite correct, Mr. Chairman. It is expensive to to be locking trees down, locked back at 6 metres height or whatever it is. So there is a lot of work entailed with that. But in some circumstances, we're probably going to have to take some action.
This could be a useful exercise for College Gwent. It would give their students training in chainsaw activities. It's all right, their health and safety, the whole lot could be incorporated. It's their tree.
Yeah, I'd be very happy if it was only one, and that's the problem, I suspect. And there are other trees, as Councillor White has mentioned as well. There are other places where we've got this overgrowth which we have to deal with. I suspect it's down to us rather than the landowner to cut back. The other issue about cutting back around signs was a point made, and the cleanliness of them. That's down to our teams. The limitations because of not cutting verges or cutting at certain times doesn't apply to that. It's a highway safety matter, and we could do it at any time. It is a case of finding the resource to do it and prioritising it accordingly. And I made a note of it as we went through, and that's something which we're going to have a purge on, I suppose, to try and improve that.
Could I ask Roger, though, to send somebody out to lop a tree or lop it down and take major branches off there so we can see the light? Would it be cheaper to install the new lamp standard and just take the... I'm just thinking here, because Valia made a point, I forgot about it. I've probably got 20 in my brain now. I know want trimming in my house because they serve no purpose. I'm just one of 43. I bet there's hundreds of trees out there which actually are just blocking out light from a lamp standard we're paying for, which serves no purpose. How are we gonna get around that one?
At the moment, Chairman, where we know that the trees are on private land, I go through Martin Evans, and he serves notices on the landowner to cut back, and he gives them, I suppose they've got, is it a month in which to react? And then he writes another letter giving him another month in which to do it. If not, then he'll get our boys to do it, and we recharge them for cutting the trees back. I suppose what's on our land is, I suppose it's back down to our grounds maintenance boys, is it? Whether they can cut it all back.
But is that not patronising? Telling somebody else to cut trees back because you're blocking the light out of our lamp, but we don't do it ourselves?
Well, it depends how you look at it. I mean, if I refer back to when I was an inspector with Gwent County Council, and a contractor went and cut a tree that was around a light, we then found that there was a preservation order on that tree, and it cost Gwent County Council thousands of pounds for a proper tree surgeon to come in and do a proper job on it. So it's better sort of telling you cut it, it's your tree.
I think our department downstairs will know every tree preservation order within Monmouthshire, so I can't see that being an issue. I think the main issue for me is if there's a cost incurred in this, which there's going to be a massive cost, there has to be a better solution than what we're saying of sending somebody out chopping trees down or chopping big boughs off, because that is very expensive. How are we actually going to get around that? Because is it cheaper not to have that light there anymore if people haven't complained about it? Anyway, it gives you something to think about. Tony?
No, not right. And the traffic light on the way through Roggett, where there's a belly aching on Facebook about blocking the traffic light, you couldn't see it. I contacted Martin and Cole, you've done it within a few days. Well, the resident done it, it's all clear now. So there is a way of doing it, and it don't cost us any money. That was blocking the road. The resident's tree being cut back.
Ones I'm thinking of are our trees, Tony, and there's about 20 of them there are. That's just one I know, one area. But Sue?
This is an issue, a big issue, because half the time we don't know whose trees they are on the verges. When I was young, many, many, many moons ago, people, if they owned a piece of land, they looked after it, no matter how small, how big a landowner they are, they still looked and copsed their trees on the side of the road. Well, I don't think we know who owns the verge up the side of the link road in my ward, but we've got vast trees there. So yeah, I can't understand how we're going to say, look up who owns it when we don't know ourselves. How are we going to find out who owns it? And in the meantime, they're going to completely close those lamps down. And it's no good taking the lamps away because it's a busy road and I need them, Chairman.
Something we're going to have to look at and try and address. Right, any more questions? Thank you. Tony, have you anything on the work programme? No, we're happy with it? Okay. Right, everybody happy with the work programme? Val? Yeah. Charges or burial space? Charging.
Oh, I'm sorry. Charging, yeah, I beg your pardon. The increase in cost of burials, not all attributable to Monmouthshire County Council. I think it's something we should look at. I would like to see us look at on behalf of residents. It's very difficult for anybody to pursue that. So if we could put that on.
And we need to look at our space at the same time.
Well, yes, capacity possibly.
Have a paper on charging for burials and cremation remains, etc., etc.
Well,
and what capacity we have.
We actually have. We've probably an awareness of how much space we've got, but the increase in charges that are now being levied on the public for burials and cremations.
Okay.
I know we benefit.
Sarah?
Yep, as mentioned just earlier, Chair, if we could just ensure that people's strategy, or particularly around our workplace sickness and levels, is reconsidered. I know Hayes.
Was it Will McLean? I think. Yeah,
Was
Peter
it
Davis. He's doing one for audit, Sarah, so we'll be copied in on that.
That'd be great.
Anything else on the work programme? I think we've hit most. I think we've got enough on our work programme. May I just ask one question, which I did forget to ask during our conversation, which we had on road safety and the speeding? We seem to be having single-member decisions going through for road traffic regulations and changes which we have to do, but they're never on our planner. Can we just try and address that? Because we have a planner here where single member decision planner or a cabinet meeting with the planner. We've had quite a few road traffic issues go through, all speed limits, etc., but they never seem to be on the planner, and I'd like them on the planner because the members then have an opportunity to ask about them or speak about them. But what we seem to do is receive them, and then people say, oh, I didn't know that, I didn't see that on the planner. And what I don't want to do is end up with any call-ins. I think we have that view of what we have there. Can we just look at that, Roger, with Paul, and making sure that any orders you have, you put them on the planner?
They are all put on the forward programme. I email.
Might be on the forward programme, but when we have a meeting, they're not on the planner. We have a planner, single member, or a cabinet planner, and we don't seem to see them on there. Now, whether you forward them and they're not put on with another department, but can we ensure that they do go on there, please? All right, thanks. Right, we've got the forward planner there from Cabinet. Anything there you want to discuss to bring to this committee? Rachel's going to bring, by the way, Rachel's going to bring the MRF contractor in here from Bristol, is it, Roger? Forgot the name of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the waste going through the MRF. So you've got the planner there off Cabinet. So March 16, we can forget about that one. Can we start to take them off, please? To save bit. I don't know why they're on there. Even May. What have we got May on there for? I did tell Hazel about having. Well, we're in October soon, so there you go. Let's get to 5th of October. Abergavenny Town Centre loan application. No. Right. The hub in Abergavenny, that's yours, is it, Sarah? You're doing that in Economic Development, November. There's nothing on there really, is it, up to Christmas time? Review of charges and fees, Joy Robson. So you got the budgets there, so busy with budgets. There's no cabinet decisions coming through there, is there? It seems very quiet there.
Our next meeting, we've got Kerry York, which is revised staff contract arrangements, individual support service. Now that's going to be interesting because they're decamping from Swancraft Court studio down to my ward, and there's a lot more I need to know about that.
Okay. Okay, everybody happy?
Just a bit of confusion into chaos. Somewhere at the beginning of this, I think it was the environmental report that we had. There was a report that was proposed, it came back 6 monthly.
Yes,
And
that's,
I felt that perhaps it could be annual rather than 6 monthly.
it's in the minutes I've just signed.
And I should have raised it then, Chairman. Members might like to think about that.
I think it was to do with Dave Jones, the one environment.
Yes.
Did we agree it was 6 monthly?
6 monthly, which seems quite a heavy load. You know, I thought.
It's only I think it was just an update report. I don't think we wanted them to come back. It was just to give us a report and just go through it. I don't think we're going to sit them there, Val, and say, right, you give us a report. And if we have any issues from that report, we can always ask them. If we've not, yeah, every 12 months.
It was quite a lengthy report.
Right. Thank you for your time, everyone. And thank you for your patience. It's been a very constructive meeting today. Safe journey home, everyone. Thank you.